Welcome to the Rocky and Meisty Show presented by Jew Stool. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Let's get right into it.
You're completely missing the boat, Hour. You're at the wrong dock.
I'd have to say this. If he's looking to go to a new team, the last thing he wants to do is be like, oh, I'm not playing. No, he's got to show up. And he's got to show the Browns, you just lost $250 million by not playing, by not giving me that money. You're going to give him? Go for it.
This is crazy. Tyreek Hill going to the Dolphins for 5 picks. Second to positions. Should we end the podcast now? I bet breaking news. Should we end it now? Now or later? Which one? I walk out right now. The Vikings going to the division. Hear it first. Hear it first.
That's asinine. You're crazy.
He's got the full package.
No way. I don't care. No way. I can't even. It's hard to even look at you right now when you say something like that. That's crazy.
We want to talk about legacy-defining plays. And legacy-defining throws take 13 seconds, and you get the ball into field goal range. That is absolutely insane.
I have to be frank with you guys. Mitch Trubisky is not a good NFL quarterback. He has never been.
Okay, and guess what? In basketball, you use a basketball. In football, you use a football.
Following a crazy week one in the NFL. By the way, I know it looks like I'm solo over here, but I'm really not. We got
Hello.
Meisty, say hi to the crowd.
Hey everyone. Shalom.
We actually have here. Meisty doesn't even know this, but I have put his avatar as him. So Meisty will see this all afterwards. Meisty's on the go, but that's how committed he is to getting this podcast done. That even on the go, he's still coming through. So we're gonna get started with a lot of crazy week 2 action. I mean, last week one was a great week of football, Meisty. Like, we forget quickly how great it was, and honestly, week 2 was even better. I mean, it was just absolutely. What's the best adjective to describe what it is? I mean, I heard someone use absolute lunacy. Another person said it was absolutely mad. Another person said it was absolutely mad. Yeah, these sound more like British expressions. And then someone said it was, I guess you could just say it was crazy. But there were 3. Last week was the week of failed comebacks. That's what I call it. This week was the week of successful comebacks. Unfortunate for us Ravens fans. Definitely not the ones that we wanted. But every team in the AFC North lost, even though it's supposed to be like the best division or one of the best divisions in football. The Browns just fell apart at the end. The Ravens, I don't know what happened. The 3 blown coverages in the secondary. Tyreek Hill and Jayden Waddle just tearing up every single secondary to shreds. And then Kyler Murray, all of a sudden, after 7 quarters to start of the season, the Cardinals defense couldn't do anything. They came through in a walk-off fumble touchdown at the end of the game, amongst many other crazy things that happened on Sunday. So let's get right into it, Meisty. It was just absolutely nuts. We got to kick off with the Ravens game, probably just to get that over with, right? But you can't gloss over this because now I want to lead by saying that I'm not. Like, maybe I'm the one person that's saying this, but, you know, if you look at people that are not Ravens fans, most of them at least, that know football relatively, you're not panicking about this game, saying there's anything wrong with the Ravens. Look at what Lamar Jackson did. The man had 3 or 4 big-time throws in this game, 21 for 29, 318 yards, 3 touchdowns. Yes, well, by the way, he played almost a perfect game. They said that on plays of 20 yards or more, he had almost a perfect pass rating. But, Meisty, the big but to that, Xavier Howard had an easy pick 6, Meisty. An easy pick 6. And Xavier Howard never drops interceptions. Okay? And that time he did, and that was a bad read. Lamar misread the throw, but other than that, outside of that really bad throw, Lamar was darn near perfect. He was really good, and give him credit where credit's due. Aside from that, the big 79-yard run, 119 yards rushing on the day, 9 carries, over 13 yards per carry. I mean, he was a game breaker. He played absolutely great. Shout out to him for playing a great game. The only problem is they ran into Tua, yes, but mainly Jaylen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, who obviously, we all know the numbers, first duo in NFL history with 150-plus yards, 10-plus receptions, and 2 touchdowns. I mean, they were doing it all, Meisty. The Dolphins not only were just killing these Ravens safeties and killing the Ravens cornerbacks, whoever they were, no Ravens cornerback, or DB for that matter, overall, really graded particularly well, according to PFF this game. They were all getting shredded, particularly in that second half. Seems like the pass rush was coming together. Marcus Williams, 2 big interceptions in the first half, really giving Tua in that passing game trouble. Then in the second half, it was just too much talent to overcome. What are your thoughts on this game, Meisty?
Yeah, a lot to unpack here in this game. For starters, Coach Mike McDaniels, I mean, his play call was, here, I have 2 of the fastest men in the sport. I'm just going to send them deep every single time, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it worked. It 100% worked. The Ravens offense should have the question marks this season around the Ravens was their offense, and it's no longer a question. I mean, Lamar is doing what Lamar does best and showing why he's worth whatever money he wants. But on the defensive side, I wouldn't be, as a Ravens fan, I'm not worried because this is something that in history the Ravens will figure out and get together, and they're young and they'll figure it out. And when the time comes, they'll be ready. Team 2, Kyle Hamilton's still learning, so I wouldn't be worried. But in general, I mean, that was one heck of a game from Tua. He didn't let the game get to him. He just kept his head cool, and he gave it his all, and he showed the reason. This is why Tua is looked up to as a top pick in the draft. One of the better players in the league, or a better quarterback, and this is the controversy, and this is the argument is right here because he shows the flashes of greatness.
Yeah, I mean, Tua did play well this game. Not particularly well out of the gate, but came into his own as the game progressed. And yes, Tua is a perfect fit for this offense with what Mike McDaniels is trying to do. I think they scheme it up perfectly. When you have two playmakers of the caliber of Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, it's very simple, Meisty. It's a very simple recipe to success. Get the ball in their hands. Any which way which you can do that. It's right. You don't have to overcomplicate things. I mean, whether it is beating a guy one-on-one down the field or whether it's beating double coverage. I mean, that's how fast Tyreek Hill is. He can beat double coverage. He does it all the time. Because oftentimes people will pick their poison with Jalen Waddle as opposed to Tyreek Hill because we know how, Tyreek Hill is one of the best receivers in football. Certainly one of the best deep threats in football. But with that being said, just try to get the ball in their hands. Whether it's down the field, whether on it's a little out route, whether it's in a slant over the middle and let them do damage after the catch, it doesn't really matter, Meisty. Just get the ball in their hands. And Tua doesn't have a very difficult job here. He doesn't. I remember when we were predicting the over-unders before the season, Meisty, I said that the Dolphins would go over 9. And I'm not even a big fan of Tua. What did I tell you? What was the one reason? You got playmakers like that, Meisty? You don't have to do much. You just don't have to do much. You just really have to play your role and get the ball into their hands. That's really all it comes down to, Meisty.
Yeah, I definitely understand that, and I hear that. I mean, I would be worried overall about the Dolphins' defense. The fact that they gave up all those points to begin with, and then they held their ground at the end. Both the Ravens and the Dolphins. There's a lot of work on both sides. The Dolphins should be very happy that they won the game because that's the point of the game. But obviously, their defense was. I mean, outside that one play by Xavier Howard, their defense wasn't that special. At the end of the game, I think the Ravens kicked themselves in the tuchus, and they hurt themselves. And there's plays they should have kicked field goals. There's plays they shouldn't have gone for it. I mean, come on. They were how many chances do you need? They were fourth. They were first and goal at the 1 yard line, and they couldn't get it in. They fumbled it. I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing? Lamar Jackson couldn't get 1 yard. Come on.
No,
what are we doing?
There were wasted opportunities on both sides of the ball, no question. But overall, the arching point of what you're saying here, I completely agree. Like, the Ravens just simply ran into two incredible playmakers, which they're not going to see every week. Although, by the way, in 2 weeks they get Stephon Diggs in that passing game, and McKenzie and Gabe Davis, and then in the week after that they get Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So, there's some tough receiving cores that the Ravens are going to have to run into. But obviously, you can't compare anything to Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. This was just a matter of some busted coverage, giving up some big plays, and that's what it was. The Ravens pass rush played much better in the first half, and like you said, the Dolphins had no response to Lamar Jackson and the Ravens receiving game, Meisty, the entire day. We'll have to go more in depth with that in a different time because I do like what Roman's been doing with that receiving core, trying to scheme everyone open. Guys have been getting open, aside from Mark Andrews. Rashad Bateman's been getting open. Duvernay's been getting open. You have, the sort of the underrated pieces there that have been getting open. Concerns in the running game, but again, discussion for a different time. At the end of the day, I agree. I don't think there's cause for concern in Baltimore, but I certainly think that this was a very convincing sign for Miami, because especially considering we weren't sure if Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill were able to coexist, Meisty. But so far, they have done just a fine job, Meisty. I don't think that's. I mean,
my main question prior to the season about the Dolphins, my biggest worries, I should say, was can Tua feed all these mouths? There's mouths to feed, and I say all because Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, those are big mouths to feed. Each guy deserves to get a lot of targets. Each guy is incredible. I'm sure there were plays where they're both wide open somehow. And like, dude, how are both of them open? They're just that good.
Yeah.
And so this is where Tua has to show, I can feed these guys. Because the bottom line is, if he can't do it, Miami's a quarterback. They could be a quarterback away from being real contenders. So I mean, maybe Tua is their guy, but that is the main question. Can Tua continue to feed? Yesterday, he proved he can feed it. Let's see if he can consistently feed them.
Absolutely. So let's move on to the next game, and this game was absolutely mad as well. The Jets-Browns, and there were a couple really funny tweets and comments going around yesterday, but the one that I like the most, Meisty, listen to this. The Browns blew a 13-point lead in the final minute 22 to lose to the Jets 31-30. NFL's teams had won the last 2,229 consecutive games when leading by at least 13 points in the last 2 minutes. The last team to blow such a lead? Guess who, Meisty?
The Browns.
That's right. The Browns in Week 9 of 2001. So they broke their own record. They broke their own 21-year record of not losing to a team with a 13-point lead in the 2 minute. I mean, what do you think about the resurrection of Joe Flacco over here, Meisty?
If you had to go back and look to the last time before that one 21 years ago, I would put money down it was the Browns.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's no explanation for it. I mean, Joe Flacco showed Joe Flacco. This is what the Ravens, this is the Joe Flacco that the Ravens had all those years. And you talked about, why he was elite. And we talked about these, as I said about Tua, the flashes of greatness. This was one of those moments that Joe Flacco, this is how he won a Super Bowl practically, by his arm, by being able to sling the ball 50, 60 yards down the field and connect with his receivers on the money. I mean, I don't know how he does it, but this is why Joe Flacco is a higher paid backup quarterback, him and Jimmy Garoppolo, just quarterbacks that are great backups. These are great backup quarterbacks. And so, that was crazy. That was the most typical Browns thing I've ever seen. And all they had to do was fall down at the 1 yard line. Game was over. But no, let's score a touchdown.
Actually, we'll get to that in a second. Because, yes, we definitely have to touch on that. It's been much discussed. But, yeah, going back on Joe Flacco, no question, right? What do we all know Joe Flacco for in Baltimore? The man could stink up a joint for three quarters. But then in the fourth quarter, all of a sudden, man looks like Joe Montana, right? He was always that clutch quarterback, made those big-time throws in the fourth quarter. He had some big-time throws in this game, particularly in the fourth quarter, really throughout. But, 44 dropbacks, 26 completions, over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. And that touchdown to Garrett Wilson was big-time, and a touchdown to Corey Davis before that. Those last 2 touchdowns in the last 2 minutes, Meisty, were big-time throws, and Joe Flacco's known to have those in his arsenal. Very inconsistent quarterback. Probably the definition of inconsistency is Joe Flacco. He's been that way throughout his career. But this guy just comes in the fourth quarter when you need him the most and pulls through, and he's still doing it in his, 14th year in his career. So like you said, one of the better backups in the league, certainly. Get a veteran quarterback. He knows the game a little better than most other backups for sure. And you had him come in there. But again, if any, going back to that Nick Chubb play, if anything was going to happen, if it was going to happen to any team, unfortunately it's the Browns. Their franchise just has had the worst luck over and over and over again. And every single time something crazy like this happens, 9 times out of 10, it happens to the Browns, Meisty. And it's unfortunate. They just have this curse. And
it's very good. It's very fortunate. Fortunate for Ravens, Bengals, and Steelers fans that this is who it always happens to.
Right. Not for the Browns, but yes, fortunate to everyone else in the league. But Nick Chubb not going down, and actually Mike Renner from PFF pointed out something interesting. The play before, Kareem Hunt also didn't go down. He went out of bounds. And if he didn't go out of bounds, the clock also would have ran out. So really, Kareem Hunt should be blamed just like Nick Chubb. Just saying, and people aren't giving the blame to Kareem Hunt. Now, the question I have for you, Meisty, is very interesting. It's a sort of psychological question, but in the heat of a game, do we really expect Nick Chubb to make that split decision and go down instead of scoring the touchdown there?
To me, there's not a blame on the running backs as much as there is on somebody in the coaching staff. I don't want to say it's Stefanski. I don't want to say this coordinator, that coordinator. I don't want to point any finger, but everyone knows, Rocky, go down at the one. Everyone knows about going down. It's not like it's a new concept of, oh yeah, go down at the 1 yard line. Everyone knows about this concept of when you're up, and that unless you have yourself in fantasy football, that's the only reason why these guys are trying to score touchdowns. Okay.
Right.
So to me, if not for the fact that, if not for I think that, the coaching staff needed to say in the huddle, somebody needed to say it at some point. It needed to be told, do not score a touchdown if you get to the 1 yard line. Fall. It's a simple football move. It's been done 1,000 times throughout the history of the league. I mean, I've had fantasy players of my own that fall down to one, and it's like you're screaming at the screen, but that is the right play. It doesn't matter if fantasy or not. That is the right play to fall at the one when you have a lead.
Yeah, absolutely. A coach should have been screaming in his ear, but in the moment is what I'm saying. Before the play, someone should have told him, and if someone didn't, that's on the coaching staff, no doubt. But in the moment, I don't know, how much do we expect out of players? Do we expect time management skills in the middle of a play?
Yes.
Is that how much we expect?
Yes, because like I said, it's been done 1,000 times. It's been done in Super Bowls. It's been done it's been done over and over. Every season, it happens multiple times a year. So for a player to sit there, so like I said, coaching staff needed to say. Now you want to say, well, the coaching staff didn't say anything. Maybe the coaching staff told him, let's go score a touchdown. Whatever it was, it never was. Yes, he has to know to fall down at the one. You have to know what's happening. You have to know what's going on in the game. You can't just be like, oh, I don't know what's happening in the game. I want to score a touchdown. You're not a rookie. You're not some young kid. You're Nick Chubb. You're Kareem Hunt. You don't go out of bounds. You go down at the 1 yard line. You have to know these guys. These guys are veterans in the league. These aren't. I mean, they're young, but they're veterans in the league. You can't. You have to expect. Yes, if it was a rookie, I'd be like, okay, I can understand a little, but this is not a rookie.
Yeah. So Nick Chubb goes and basically they're up 30-17 when Nick Chubb goes into the end zone. You're thinking minute 30 something left, and it doesn't really make a difference, right? I mean they still the Jets win probability is 1%, so ultimately it shouldn't have made a difference. But of course 1%
Under 1%.
Right,
it was 0.03.
Right, but if Nick Chubb goes down, it's 0.01 because the odds of fumbling a kneel down are probably even less. Correct. So that's really where it comes from. Your probability is very, very, very slim, but it's very, 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 very slim had Nick Chubb taken the knee. Correct. Yes, 100%. Definitely a freeze. We still shouldn't be looking at this game and saying, how did the Browns blow it? Regardless of what Nick Chubb did, but that's a situation, and Joe Flacco pulls through, and the Jets have a miraculous win, and some convincing things that just to look at. Garrett Wilson, they're deploying him in a lot of different ways, Meisty. This is a guy that they were sort of wondering before the season, how are the Jets going to use him? The answer is in every way. Use him on screens, let him go down the field, let him go one-on-one with the corner. Doesn't really make a difference. You can deploy him in so many different ways. So the Jets have some sort of a compelling storyline here, but I don't think anyone expects them to win many games this season nonetheless. And the Jets actually the next have the rest of the AFC North, the rest of the next 2 weeks. So
I have a question for you, Rocky, then about the Jets.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you'd even have. I mean, there's no correct answer. We don't know. But the bottom line is like this: what's his name? Zach Wilson's out for 4 to 6 weeks. So if let's say Joe Flacco wins 4 games here for them, Zach Wilson comes in and loses 4 or 5 games. Are they going to flip to Flacco? They'd be like, no, Zach Wilson's our guy. As long as he's healthy, he's our quarterback.
No, you don't know what you're going to get. I mean, I'm sorry. On the contrary, you know what you're going to get from Joe Flacco already, right? Especially at this point in his career. Ever since he won that Super Bowl with the Ravens, and 2 years following that where they made the playoffs again, really the first 7 years of his career was where he had a success. But since then, it's been a revolving door. Those last 3 years on the Ravens, then with the Broncos, then with the Jets. You know what you're going to get out of him. You're going to get a couple big-time throws now and then. For the most part, very inconsistent play. We saw how he played last week against the Ravens. Didn't play particularly well. Wasn't able to sustain many drives throughout that entire game. That's really been the story of the last 7+ years of his career over here, Meisty. So you know what you're going to get from Joe Flacco already. You don't really know what you're going to get from a young guy like Zach Wilson. So no, you gotta stick with the young gun, Meisty. That's what I think.
Let's move on to the next game.
What do you say?
Let's move on to the next game. That is a good answer.
Right. Let's move on to the next game. So, stick with the young gun, Meisty. That's the advice I have to give you. So the next game was also ridiculous. And actually, because I was watching the Bengals Cowboys. We'll get to that in a second. But then after the Bengals Cowboys game, the Cardinals Raiders game came on, and you're thinking, you just get like the last 30 seconds of the game. No, you got like an hour of extra football or 45 minutes because the last play took like 20 minutes, and then overtime took a while. So basically, what happened in this game was very simple. The Raiders were up 23-7 late in the third quarter. What am I talking about? They were up 23-7 in the fourth quarter with under 9 minutes to go. Kyler Murray brings the team down. They score a touchdown. And then, of course, you need 2 2-point conversions and 2 touchdowns. So the first 2-point conversion was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the man literally ran around forever. What was it, like 20 seconds? I think the play lasted in real time like 20 seconds. I'm not even exaggerating.
Yeah.
It was right? Well, it was
20 seconds.
He ran to the left side, then he ran to the right side, then he ran back to the left side and proceeded to slant his way back to the right side and somehow score a touchdown. He was back at like midfield and still rushed in for the 2-point conversion. And then they drove down the field again. Controversial call against Marquise Brown, who actually they did not give him the catch on the sideline. Would have been a big catch at the 4-yard line. They didn't even review it. Whatever. Glossing over that, it's 4th and goal with 3 seconds left. Last play of the game, and Kyler Murray extends the play, rushes in, 2-point conversion. Absolutely crazy as well. He threads the needle in between like 7 defenders, and AJ Green comes up with an incredible catch, incredible throw and catch, and the Cardinals ultimately in overtime forced a turnover, fumble 6. Cardinals, despite looking like not like really bad the first 7 quarters of the season, are 1-1. They survive a great Vegas team and a good Vegas atmosphere with a victory, Meisty. I mean, what do you think about that? Cardinals not looking great, but they're 1-1.
Mr. $200 million man right there showed also same thing like I said about Tua. This is the reason why these are the guys. This is the guy that the Cardinals said is our franchise quarterback, because he has the potential to do these types of things, and it's greatness. But I say this now, when I walked into the room and they were going for 2, I said to my brother, "Why are you playing Madden? He's just running in circles." I could have thought it. You could have sworn it was Madden. It was a Madden type play. It was the most Madden thing. To the point where I questioned myself: can I run 84 yards in 20 seconds? I don't know. Like physically, can I physically run in 20 seconds as much as he did? And he was running side to side. He only needed 2 yards. That was a Barry Sanders as Barry Sanders can get.
Yeah.
Overall, that was one incredible comeback. Another game that just made no sense. I kind of feel like it's happened to the Ravens. It happened to the Raiders this past week. They thought they had the game in the bag, and they let up, and the other team, the Dolphins and the Cardinals, were like, hold on a second. We still have an opportunity. And they came back, and they stormed, and they had the momentum, and that was it. There was no they once they scored that first 2-point conversion, and Hunter Renfrow that was the most un-Hunter Renfrow thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, much like Cooper Kupp fumbling towards the end of the Falcons-Rams game, right? That was also very un-Cooper Kupp-like, because these are guys that are normally very secure. Also, another thing in this game, Davante Adams getting 7 targets and 2 receptions for 12 yards. I mean, remember I put out a YouTube short last week, and I mentioned it on the podcast, that Davante Adams got 17 receptions last week. He was on pace after week 1. Last week, I'm sorry. He was on pace after week 1 for 289 targets. He had 17 targets last week, on pace for 289 targets. He only got 7 targets. That's 10 less for all those non-math gurus. 10 less than he did last week. And what was going on there? Derek Carr's not looked good over the first 2 weeks of the season. 5 turnover-worthy plays last week, despite, yes, targeting Davante Adams, almost beating the Chargers. And and I thought their intention would be to target Davante Adams a lot, but they didn't target Davante Adams a lot this week. Derek Carr's not playing well. I'm a little confused with what's going on over here in Vegas, Meisty.
I think Vegas is a little ahead of themselves with Derek Carr. I'm not a big Derek Carr fan. I mean, I'm sort of a Derek Carr fan, but it depends on on the moment. I think that Derek Carr is overrated, in my opinion. I think that they could have gone. I mean, they paid him a lot of money. And the same thing last year. He started off very good. This year he's not starting off good, but last year he started off great, and then he just was like gone. This year, he's gone, and he's not there. And Davante, the question really comes down to this: did the Cardinals' entire game plan surround do not let Davante Adams touch the ball, because that's how you lose the game. So maybe that's what the Cardinals did, and I don't know. It was a very, very interesting, the fact that he had barely any receptions compared to what he could have had. I think that in the film room, they will just go back to it, and they're just going to feed Davante Adams all season long, practically. There's no explanation why, if Davante Adams every game isn't getting 10 receptions, there's a problem. That's how I look at it.
Or at least 10 targets, for sure. 100%.
10 targets, sure.
If he's not getting 10 targets every game, there's definitely a problem. You have to be You pay a guy that much money, $28 million a year. Number one, he is that good. And number two, you pay him that much money. You should use him. You should attack him as much as you could. And even if the Cardinals want to take him out of the game, force the ball to him a little. Not too much, but yeah, a little. Maybe try to force the ball to him. I completely agree, Meisty. I didn't understand the game plan.
10 targets is a minimum. 10 targets is a minimum in the worst weather possible in Green Bay. 10 targets minimum.
No, I absolutely agree. We'll have to see definitely if Vegas adjusts to this, because I don't think this is going to be a constant theme throughout the season. I think what we saw in week 2 was the anomaly, not targeting him that much. But I think what we saw in week 1 is more probably indicative of what's to come throughout the season. Targeting him 17 times. He's probably somewhere in between there, but closer to the 17 than the 7, I would imagine. Or else Vegas might not have as much success as perhaps some were thinking this season. Okay, let's move on to the next game. We have the Bengals-Cowboys. Again, just ridiculous, Meisty. I mean, I was shocked. This was my Sherlock of the week. I thought that the Bengals, and there's a lot of money going to the Bengals this week. I thought that this was one of the locks of the season so far. You got a backup quarterback, Cooper Rush, coming in. Doesn't do that much, sort of just does enough sometimes, right? But listen, Cooper Rush is 2 for 2 for fourth quarter comebacks in his career. He's played 2 games, and 2 times he's led his team to fourth quarter comebacks. 100% on fourth quarter comebacks is Cooper Rush, Meisty. This is absolutely crazy. But before we get to Cooper Rush, what is happening to Joe Burrow and the Bengals? I mean, is it a Super Bowl hangover? Like last week against the Steelers, they should have won the game. They didn't. Again, Joe Burrow forced to four interceptions, 1 fumble, 5 turnovers in total. This week, Burrow, no interceptions on the day, but again, missing some throws, didn't look great. I mean, you're not really getting Jamar Chase as involved in the offense as he should. He had less than 55, only 54 yards this game. I mean, it's a little concerning when Jamar Chase and T. Higgins both get under 75 yards receiving, Meisty.
So, start like this. The Bengals are still suffering the same problem as last year. There is no offensive line. They invested in that, and it did not work. Whatever investments they made, they need to change. So their offensive line is not giving Joe Burrow. It's unfortunate. I'm a Joe Burrow fan, even though he's in the division. I'm a big Joe Burrow fan. I have his jersey, and I have this fear that he's going to be hurt within the next couple weeks. There's no way the last guy to ever fit, I think, to get hit as many times as Joe Burrow did through 2 weeks was David Carr. What was his name? David Carr? Or whatever his name was?
One of the Carr brothers, you're saying.
Yes, the older one. Right. And he ran, and they injured him all the time because they couldn't protect him, and he was hurt. He was done. His career was over before he can even get started. And this is what's happening to Joe Burrow. If they don't protect him, his career will unfortunately be over very soon because he already had 1 big injury. How many more injuries are you going to allow the guy to have before he can't do it anymore? Joe Burrow is not the problem. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, not the problem. Their defense might be a problem, but that offensive line needs to be fixed ASAP if they want to see any success. And now with the Ravens back in the division and as long as they're healthy, I mean, the Bengals are in big trouble.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right about the offensive line. When under pressure, Joe Burrow is a completely different quarterback. We know he tends to force the ball a little. He tends to hold the ball a little too long. A lot of the sacks are on the offensive line. Some of the sacks aren't him, but a lot of the sacks are on the offensive line. Just looking at the numbers over here, his completion percentage this year, when under pressure, is 41.2. His completion percentage when kept clean is nearly 70. Now, obviously, your completion percentage when kept clean is going to be better than when under pressure. But not to compare or anything, but Patrick Mahomes, when he's under pressure, carves the blitz, Meisty. He absolutely carves the blitz. He gets the ball out quickly, and he knows exactly where he wants to go with it. What?
Patrick Mahomes welcomes the blitz. He says, come on, blitz.
He wants you to blitz because he knows exactly where he's going to go with the ball. So if you're going to take 1 or 2 DBs out of the equation, that's perfect. Give my receivers more space. I know exactly where I want to go with it anyway. I don't need more than a second and a half to throw it or to make my decisions. So it's perfect for him. But Joe Burrow is probably not on that caliber of Patrick Mahomes yet. But, the bottom line is this guy does need protection. He's clearly not the type of guy that's going to be able to get the ball out as quickly as Patrick Mahomes and carve the blitz. You're not playing as many 2 high safeties against Joe Burrow as you are against Patrick Mahomes, and I guess there's a reason for that. So at the end of the day, he sacked 6 times. The numbers are not good. Aside from the sacks, the numbers are not good when he's under pressure in this season so far. And in general, he does not play well when he's under pressure. That was a top priority for the Bengals this offseason, Meisty. They did improve the offensive line. 3 players in the offensive line should have been improved. We talked about last year, creep back toward average. That's what the Bengals did in the offseason. They didn't invest an incredible amount of salary into the offensive line, but they invested enough where it should have been, okay, now we're at least average. We have an average offensive line. That should have been enough, Meisty, but it wasn't, and it hasn't been so far. Doesn't mean it won't be. Now, Meisty, one thing I do want to say is to hold our horses a little, because who did this offensive line go up against the last 2 weeks? Which pass rushers? T.J. Watt and Micah Parsons. I mean, so let's hold our horses a little, right? And those were the guys that were problems. Micah Parsons had, 6 pressures? I mean, it was ridiculous. Micah Parsons is a problem for every opposing offensive line. So I do want to see how this offensive line responds down the stretch of the season when they're not going up against guys of that caliber. Yeah.
I think also that they're just getting started. You have to allow them to build the chemistry and see how they can do throughout the rest of the season. So yes, like you said, don't jump off the bandwagons. Hang on, relax. It'll get easier, hopefully, for them. But I want to talk about Cooper Rush, Rocky.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to get there, yeah. Go ahead.
I know you were, but I want to get there first. So I'm going to talk about Cooper Rush. First of all, the Dallas Cowboys came out the gate, right? 12-play drive. Unfortunately, I don't have the numbers in front of me exactly, but it was a 12-play drive, and it was perfect. Well, it was a perfect. I know. Yeah. It was a perfectly executed first drive, and so to me, though, I say this: everyone on the Cowboys knew they had to step up because they're missing their main guy, right? Their number one player across the board on their team. I mean, maybe Micah Parsons is number one, but bottom line, right, on their offensive leader, their captain of the team was out, and everyone now knew that they knew they needed to step up and play big, and they did. The offensive line played big. Cooper Rush did not have to do much. He just had to try to not make too many mistakes. But as a backup quarterback, you don't have a lot of knowledge when you're playing against the backup. So to me, he got his one win, but that's it. The next week's team is not going to allow Cooper Rush to do what Cooper Rush did last past week.
Yeah. By the way, that first drive you mentioned, it was a big 4th and 2, actually, that they converted a 17-yard completion to Noah Brown. Had a big game today, right? Noah Brown, this guy was drafted in 2017. What is it? The 85th overall pick from the Cowboys. Like, sort of unlocked him because we didn't really know this guy had all that much talent. But all of a sudden, 91 yards, a big touchdown over there in the beginning of the game. I mean, that was pretty cool. 5 targets, 5 receptions, And so aside from getting CeeDee Lamb Did you hear that? Or did I just hear that? I heard my ad came on. Anyway, so aside from getting CeeDee Lamb and the Dalton Schultz involved, Noah Brown was a game breaker this game, and Cooper Rush came out quick, got the ball to Noah Brown a bunch of times. Second half was very stagnant. They didn't score any points until that last drive. But hey, last drive when it mattered. We're not going to give Cooper Rush the MVP award, but that's for sure. Nor will we give him Offensive Player of the Year. But he got the job done, and somehow they beat. They were able to exploit the defense. Played great against the Bengals, confused the Bengals team. They weren't able to score a touchdown until the score towards the end of the game. I mean, they only had 9 points in the first 3 quarters. They scored that touchdown and 2-point conversion towards the end of the game, and then the Cowboys went down and got the game-winning kick. This was crazy, Meisty. The fact that the Cowboys came out here with a victory. That may be my upset of the season so far. I don't know about you, but that must be
so I want to say one more thing about Noah Brown, though. To me, Noah Brown, I don't know if you heard the announcer say it. Tony Romo, I think Tony Romo was announcing that game. But either way, the announcer made it clear that the reason that Noah Brown was having a good game was because Cooper Rush and him practice together on the number 2 squad.
Is that what it is?
And there's a big connection between them. And that is an amazing, I credit the coaching staff because they knew that. And they said, Noah Brown, you're going to be involved big this week. And they did. They got him involved. And there's a connection there because Dak is the one throwing it to CeeDee Lamb in practice. But when he practices with the number 2 team, it's Cooper Rush with Noah Brown. And to me, I was like, that makes a lot of sense for Noah Brown to go off it. I should have known. I should have played him in fantasy. Unfortunately, I should have spoke to Mike McCarthy before the game and been like, Mike, talk to me.
Yeah, you should. Your good old buddy Mike. You should have hit him up before the game. No doubt about that. So, okay, so I think we could there were a couple interesting headlines. Obviously, the Bucs and the Saints. The Bucs finally getting over their Achilles heel. Wasn't a great offensive output, but at the end of the day, the Bucs got it done.
Rocky, there's breaking news from that game that Mike Evans is suspended 1 game. That's big. It's not really that big. It's Tom Brady. I don't worry about Tom Brady, but Mike Evans is suspended 1 game for that fight that broke up between him and Marshawn Lattimore. Let me ask you this, Rocky.
Yeah.
And just because we touched the topic of this game, which team is worse off without the guy.
You stole it from me. I was just about to comment on that.
Oh,
Meisty.
yes, I did.
You stole it. I was just about to say, there's no question the Saints are worse off without Marshawn Lattimore. Mike Evans struggles mightily when he goes up against Marshawn Lattimore. Lattimore completely shuts him down. So, I heard a great point this morning from Sam Monson. He said if you were to get, if you're just coming from a business perspective, obviously you never want people to get in a fight and everything, but if you're just coming from a business perspective, Tom Brady maybe slipped him a couple bucks and said, you know what, I'll give you 5 more targets, the next couple of weeks. If you just, get into a little fight, little fist fight with Marshawn Lattimore, you might have to sacrifice yourself, but you'll also be able to get Lattimore out of the game. That'll definitely give them an advantage because you still have Godwin, you have Julio Jones, you have plenty of other weapons. It's not, although I know they suffered from some injuries yesterday, but it's not like it was a necessity to have him on the field. And getting Marshawn Lattimore, negating that threat of him shutting down one side of the field, I think Tom Brady liked that prospect. So to answer your question, Meisty, no question the Bucs benefited more from not having Marshawn Lattimore in the field. No?
What else? Where was the other?
What did you say? I think we lost. Oh, no. Now you're back.
Back. Yeah, Rocky, I would love, I don't know if we talked about it before, but I would love to talk about the 49ers game today.
Trey Lance.
The Trey Lance, this Jimmy Garoppolo contract situation, though, is insane. Yeah. He makes $25,000 playing every game now that Trey Lance is out. If he wins, it's $100,000 on top of that. He made $350,000 in bonus money yesterday's game.
This is why the Niners signed Jimmy Garoppolo to a backup quarterback contract, right? The bottom line is that they, despite him being a rushing quarterback, Trey Lance, which he obviously is a very prolific rusher, you knew that the threat of injury was there. And if that happens, now you have an above-average backup quarterback, right? You have probably one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league, and a slightly below-average starting quarterback. So, at the end of the day, Meisty, this was a good security blanket. I didn't like it. I don't like Jimmy Garoppolo particularly. I don't think he gives you much upside. In fact, I think he gives you a lot of downside too. But most games he does his job. He's on a very creative 49ers team. They do a lot of different things with Ayuk and Debo and Eli Mitchell and just a lot of versatile players over there. And at the end of the day, with those versatile players, even with a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo just to do his thing, not make too many mistakes like he did down the stretch last year, this is why the Niners signed Jimmy Garoppolo to that money. Just in case something like this happens. But listen, just focusing on Trey Lance for a second, it stinks, Meisty. It stinks because this is when we were going to see what we had from Trey Lance. And we're not going to be able to see it anymore. He's had so few snaps in his NFL career. Finally, the Niners had a chance to test the waters with him. He gets to play, 5-6 quarters. It's just very unfortunate, Meisty, that we don't really get to see what they're going to do with him. And the question for the Niners is going to be what to do with him moving forward with all these injury concerns and not really knowing if he's good or not.
All right, so it comes down to this. First of all, Jimmy Garoppolo did have shoulder surgery, so maybe Jimmy Garoppolo is back. You can't throw out the fact. Now, it might not be it might not be credit to him, but there is something to it that he has been to a Super Bowl and NFC Championship game in back-to-back years over the last year. So you can't throw that out the door. So Jimmy Garoppolo shows potential to be a very good quarterback. He's a poor man's Flacco, if you want to call it. But he has the...
I think we lost you there, Meisty. I think we lost you there. What I just to build along that point, the Niners brought in Trey Lance because of his upside. Yes, has Jimmy Garoppolo got them to the Super Bowl? Has Jimmy Garoppolo got them to the NFC Championship game? There's no question about it. But at the end of the day, they wanted Trey Lance to get them over that one hump, to get them that step up. He has that upside. He has that big throw ability. He has the rushing upside. Whether or not he was going to hit the upside was a different story. Whether or not he had a lower floor than Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe. I don't think that's the case, but maybe. But even if that's the case, this team achieved all heights over the last bunch of years except for and short of winning a Super Bowl. So I think that, Trey Lance coming in there, that's exactly what they wanted to accomplish. They wanted to win a Super Bowl with him. And I think that's what it comes down to. Did we lose you, Meisty? Are you back? Okay, I think we're still without Meisty. The next segment I wanted to get into... Oh, you're back, Meisty.
Okay, yeah. So I apologize for that.
No problem. But did you hear what I was saying about Trey Lance? I was saying that, that's why the Niners... I don't want to repeat it for our audience over here, but that's why the Niners drafted Trey Lance. Not to make Super Bowls, not to make NFC Championship games, to win the Super Bowl, to get over that hump. They thought that Trey Lance could provide that upside. That's why they got him.
Right. I agree with that as well. So my other thing about Jimmy Garoppolo is this. Jimmy Garoppolo's connect. I would say, I don't know how to put it into words almost, but like I prefer Jimmy Garoppolo to Trey Lance because I think Jimmy Garoppolo's veteran presence is just I don't blame Jimmy Garoppolo for losing Super Bowls. He had a bad shoulder. He I don't know how to say it, but to me, I think that I feel bad to say it. They're better off with Jimmy Garoppolo. I want to say one more thing though about Jimmy Garoppolo as well. When I was making a DraftKings lineup yesterday, and I said to my friends, "Who should I start at quarterback?" And he's like, "Jimmy Garoppolo's going to go off today." And I'm like, "Jimmy Garoppolo's not even the starter, bud." He's like, "Yeah, but he's going to go off today." I should have known. He knew. My friend knew. We were laughing. So we weren't laughing. We never want to, make fun of an injury or laugh at an injury. But as soon as the injury happened, me and him looked at each other. He's like, "I told you."
Little prophecy going on over there. But we'll definitely have we'll definitely have to agree to disagree about that. You know my opinion on Trey Lance already. We know your opinion on Jimmy Garoppolo. But yes, either way, it's not going to really have a choice. They're not really going to have a choice. They're going to have to put Jimmy Garoppolo under center for the rest of the season, seemingly either way. So I wanted to do this, Meisty. I didn't even discuss this with you before the podcast, but biggest surprises from the week. I recall we were discussing that we were going to do something like this. Last week we sort of talked about week 1 overreactions. So before we get to Rocky's roll call and wrap it up, I want to just a couple surprises from the week. And there were many surprises this week. In-game surprises, tons of them. But I'm just going to go through a couple. So my biggest surprise of the week, no question, Meisty, had to have been the Cowboys being the Bengals. There's no question about it. You got a backup quarterback coming in there, and Dak Prescott out for the season. Last week, even when Dak Prescott was in for the first half of the game against the Bucs, we still said this Cowboys offense sort of lackluster, right? We're not seeing so much potential. And then Dak goes down, and we're like, forget it, the season's over. And I still think the Cowboys season is probably over. But at the end of the day, they responded well. Look how Jerry Jones got the troops together, and they played a good game. They played a great game on the defensive side. Cooper Rush had a great first half. Had the game-winning drive, somehow beat the defending AFC champion Bengals. So that's my number one surprise for the week, Meisty.
Really? I'm shocked that's your number one surprise, Rocky. Because I got one that's even a little bit more shocking, Rocky.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yes.
Shutting out the Indianapolis Colts. Now, I understand the Colts have had the history between those two teams are mind-boggling. It doesn't make any sense that the Jaguars somehow show up to play against the Colts once a year. But outside of that, Rocky, in today's NFL, to shut someone out completely, Frank Reich has got to go. I don't have any other answer for you. Something's wrong. The Jacksonville shouldn't. Trevor Lawrence should never be looking like Tom Brady, ever. And he was out there slinging it looking like Tom Brady. So there's definitely question marks there. And that is my big surprise of the week. And, maybe Jacksonville's a real contender.
I like that one, Meisty. I like that one a lot. Trevor Lawrence played great yesterday, and Christian Kirk is sort of a viable receiver. Obviously wasn't necessarily worth the money they gave him in the offseason, but finally a viable receiver. So that was certainly a big shock to shut out a team in the NFL, especially the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's like an Achilles heel, right? The last 2 times the Colts got embarrassed were to the Jaguars. It's quite an interesting phenomenon going on over there. But
other game, Rocky, before we get my other thing that I'm very surprised. Now we're talking about a little overreaction, and we want to talk about surprises, I guess. My other thing is the fact that the Giants are playing. Saquon did not show up for them yesterday, and yet they still pulled out the win. Brian Dable, whatever his name is, I don't know. I never can pronounce his last name correctly. But he's using his players correctly. I love when a coach does this. They don't have any one Tyreek Hill that's so much better than everyone else on the team. They don't have a superstar. They have just a bunch of average stars, good players. Darius Toney is very good, very talented. But he said, hey, he didn't use him this past game. Why? Because he realized he can pull other players and get other guys involved and make big moves. And they did. It was a close game, but the fact is, if Saquon would have showed up, they probably would have crushed them. And even without Saquon showing up, they still figured it out.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one as well. Another shocker for me was the Broncos, how poorly they've been the first 2 weeks of the season. I know they grabbed the victory yesterday, but you literally have the crowd counting down the numbers of the play clock. 5, 4, 3,
Six.
2, so that the Broncos wouldn't get a delayed game. I mean, that's how dysfunctional this offense has been the first couple weeks of the season. And Hackett, the head coach, Nathaniel Hackett, a lot of people are calling for his job already, calling for his head, because it looks very dysfunctional over there in Denver. And not necessarily to blame Russell Wilson, but, I mean, no one on this team, Meisty, not a single player had more than 2 receptions except for Cortland Sutton. No one had 30 yards. 30 receiving yards, except for Cortland Sutton. That's a problem, Meisty, especially Jerry Jeudy going down with an injury. Big concerns over here in Denver. Russell Wilson's been a part of some really dysfunctional offenses, and that was sort of the reason he requested to trade to Denver in the first place, Meisty. But he comes to Denver, and it's not looking much better. I got news for you. They grabbed the victory yesterday. I hate to be this negative after a victory Monday. On a victory Monday, I should say. But definitely what to shore up over there in Denver. I'm not saying they're not going to be successful down the stretch run of the season, but I have not liked what I've been seeing from the Broncos throughout the first couple weeks of the season, Meisty.
I agree with that one, and I have another surprise for you.
Mm-hmm.
How about the fact that the Lions might be just that good? Their defense obviously could have probably done a little bit better, but I mean, that was a Jared Goff performance that I've never seen before in my life. That was perfect. I mean, that was amazing. Amon C. Brown was insane. That was a perfect game. I mean, it's not as surprising because they beat. I'm going to call them the Washington Commanders probably for the first time in my life. But my real surprise, Rocky, is that the Packers didn't score more points.
Right. You're saying considering the circumstances, they should have scored more points on the Bears, is what you're saying.
They should have scored. It should have been, I don't know, 60-10.
Right. Yeah, and we might have more surprises tonight as there's a doubleheader going underway just in a few minutes here. Bills Titans. So we have Monday Night Football coming up. We'll probably have to run out of the podcast again, or just me because you won't be seeing Meisty. But before that,
I don't think I want to run out of the truck.
Oh, probably don't run out of the truck. It's not a good idea, especially if it's on drive. Yeah, especially if the ignition's still on. That's probably not a great idea. We want you for the next podcast, Meisty. But anyway, let's move on to our next and final segment that we know as Rocky's Roll Call. Now, again, just reiterating what we do, Rocky's Roll Call. This will be the last week because it's week 2. Just to refresh everyone, 1 or 2 guys or 3 guys, just a group of guys that just absolutely balled out from this week. And this week there were a lot of ballers. Last week I chose TJ Watt / Minkah Fitzpatrick and that Steelers defensive performance, and my runner-up was Justin Jefferson. This week it's another duo, Meisty. I'm sorry. I could not hold myself back. It was just too easy. I mean, you can't overlook what Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle did this weekend, Meisty. You just can't. Right. The man, they combined for 32 targets, 22 receptions, 190 yards for Tyreek Hill, 170 yards for Jalen Waddle, 2 touchdowns each having plays of 59 and 60 and 59 respectively, each doing it all, Meisty, on all ends of the field. Not only did these guys bust the Ravens' secondary, the Ravens are supposed to have one of the top 5 secondaries in the league, albeit without Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters that last drive. But they have Kyle Hamilton. Marcus Williams already has 3 interceptions here. Kyle Hamilton, the talented safety drafted high up in the first round. You have Marlon Humphrey's been one of the better corners throughout his early career. You have Marcus Peters, who's been a very good, great playmaker over there. And honestly, all of a sudden, you have these 2 guys running past the defense and not only making big plays down the field, making big plays in the intermediate range, Meisty. Taking the ball, making damage, doing damage after the catch. These guys can do it all. That's a force to be reckoned with over there in Miami, Meisty. No doubt, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Rocky's Roll Call for the weekend. I don't even think it's a question, Meisty. No?
I hear that. That is definitely up there with performances of the week so far. Another performance of the week for me would have to go down, like I said earlier, Amon C. Brown. He had 4 touchdowns, was all over the place, couldn't be stopped. But I want to say another man. I guess my runner-up, you can call it. Rashard Bateman showed flashes of incredibleness. I don't want to call it greatness because I don't want to say, oh, that was greatness. But what Rashard Bateman was putting up, I mean, his flashing his speed, his bigness, his capability of coming over the middle, making that catch, and just turning up the field.
I think we lost you there, Meisty. No, the Rashad. Oh yeah, you back? Yeah, we got you back. Rashad Bateman.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're coming in and out. You're coming in and out. Okay, yeah, you're not doing very well, Meisty. Here, 1 second. I want to maybe try to reconnect. And
call me.
I'm gonna,
sorry, but
Okay, yeah, try to reconnect maybe. I wanted to say Rashad Bateman is a good call. Now, you look at Rashad Bateman, the Ravens didn't have any plays of 50-plus yards, I think, for a couple seasons now. All of a sudden, through the first 2 games of the season, Rashad Bateman, the big play down the field in last week against the Jets, the big deep bomb from Lamar Jackson, and today the slant, he took over the middle of the field, beating guys after the catch. 4 receptions, 108 yards, 7 targets, sort of spreading the ball around there. I agree. I think the receiving core has been playing much better over the first two weeks of the season in Baltimore than we thought it would. There's no question about that, Meisty. Now, I have a runner-up for Rocky's roll call as well. Come on. You can't not mention Joe Flacco. You can't not mention Joe Flacco. And we're not going to have, we likely won't have another opportunity to get him in for Rocky's roll call this year. So we got to get Joe Flacco in. 26 for 44, 307 yards, 4 touchdowns.
Pause. Not just this year, ever.
Love it. Right, the rest of his career, you never know. Man had 4 touchdowns. The man just pulled through that in the second half in particular. Just some big-time throws from Joe Flacco, hitting Garrett Wilson, hitting Corey Davis, hitting his playmakers, taking advantage of an improved Jets receiving core, right, Meisty? You bring in Garrett Wilson. All of a sudden, you have Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, some intrigue, Breece Hall and Michael Carter there in the backfield. Intriguing playmakers over there in New York. And you have Joe Flacco coming in there, taking advantage, and putting on a clinic in the fourth quarter, Meisty. Putting on a clinic in the last 2 minutes, as he's known to do. We've seen this guy beat the Steelers in the last 2 minutes on Sunday Night Football twice. We've seen him beat great teams, fourth quarter comebacks, played awful for 3 quarters. All of a sudden, the last 2 minutes, this guy's ice water in his veins. Joe Flacco, runner-up for Rocky's roll call. Gotta give the Joe Flacco shout out.
I hear that. Listen, anytime you can get Joe Flacco, talk about Joe, I'm all in it. Talk about the most elite quarterback of all time, I'm for it.
Exactly. You gotta get that in there, Meisty. I'm sorry we cut you off on the Rashad Bateman thing. I don't know if you want to finish that off before we wrap it up.
No, I think that you finished it all. I didn't want to call it great, but what the Ravens receiving corp is doing, and by the way, with Devin Duvernay going out in the middle of the game, may have really affected the ending of that game. It took away a big target from Lamar Jackson. I think they were trying to get Duvernay more involved in the game. I mean, but yeah, no, I don't have much more to say other than Rashad Bateman is that guy. He is that guy that the Ravens needed all these years. Possibly is that guy.
Yeah, well, you better hope so for all Ravens fans that the Ravens receiving core is going to sort of definitely exceed expectations from this season. Now, before we wrap up, Meisty, an intriguing phenomena going on in our fantasy league. Actually, you and I are up against each other this weekend, and bad luck, Meisty. Jerry Jeudy going down. Corey Kmet, 0 points last night against the Packers. And now I'm up by 10, barely crawling in this game. I'm up by 10. Yahoo has me as like a 79% chance to win the game. But, you got Justin Jefferson, I got Dalvin Cook and Dawson Knox. I mean, this is an interesting one because you have a guy that could literally score 40 points, Meisty. It's not over yet, Meisty. It's not over.
It's definitely not over, but the crazy thing is that all week long, projection-wise, I was going to crush you.
Yep.
I mean, I was on pace to crush you with Jerry Jeudy. All I needed maybe was another couple points, and who would have thought that Kmet in back-to-back weeks would literally have no points?
Nothing! I mean, remarkable.
This is crazy. It's crazy. I mean, no, but and you want to talk about the Bears, I mean, this is something that the Bears need to fix. I know they won a game, but this is definitely something they need to fix, and as fantasy owners around the world need to know, I say this with all my heart, do not give up on Kmet.
All right.
He will go off, just a matter of when.
It's not if, it's when. That's what we like to say over here, right? So that's really what it comes down to. Hopefully for your sake, Meisty, next week Corey Kmet will pull through. But for this week, I'm glad he got 0 points. Hopefully I can pull through some victory.
I have him in two other leagues as well. It's brutal.
That's not only that, you said you have Jerry Jeudy in several other leagues too, and he sort of went down early in the game. Man, that is rough, Meisty. Just some bad luck for you this week.
It was definitely not my week when it came to the Ravens and fantasy football.
Not only that, I had Kyler Murray, and Kyler Murray was doing nothing the entire game. All of a sudden, in the fourth quarter, man decides to score like 20 fantasy points in the fourth quarter in overtime. You know what I'm saying? Like that also, I probably would have lost the game regardless of all your bad luck had Kyler Murray not pulled through the way he did towards the end of the game there, Meisty. So some bad luck, but hey, may the best man win. Game's not over yet. You still got a shot. We'll keep you updated on that as well. You guys could probably keep yourselves updated.
I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting. Yeah, Rocky, I'm rooting for you.
Nah. Don't root for me. Root for yourself. You still got a shot. Although I would not like to start 0-2. That's for sure. I lost to the defending champion Morty last week, who, by the way, wasn't able to join us for this podcast. But hopefully for the next podcast, we'll get him in there. But we may do, Meisty. We may do. Well, of course, Morty and Yehuda are both sorely missed, and they both contribute greatly to this podcast. But it is called.
Yehuda not so much.
Yeah, I was waiting for that. But it is called the Rocky and Meisty Show, after all. So we do have that chemistry. We know how to run it on our own, but of course we have incredible contributors here behind the scenes, in front of the scenes as well. My laptop is about to die. With that being said, everyone, thank you for joining us for this week 2 review. Let's watch some Monday Night Football, a doubleheader of Monday Night Football, Meisty. Just a final thought on this doubleheader. How you feeling? How you feeling about a doubleheader Monday Night Football, Meisty?
I am excited, Rocky. I will see you later this week. Let's get it done. Let's get football. Football is the best thing that ever happened to us. This is great.
All right, baby. With that being said, till then.